So, so anyway, the whole purpose of the seeing it clearly, the visualization, actually, as I mentioned yesterday, brings the vision. Remember, if you do the visualization very, very clearly, more and more and more, actually you can have vision of the deity. That's the first, is the clarity, called salva. Second is what is called the presence, the really feeling of presence. That actually, when you visualize Padmasambhava, he's actually there. It's not just a picture that you're mentally fabricating, but he's actually there, and that you're seeing him. Rather than you're fabricating him, but he's there and you're seeing him. Clear? That feeling, it's really the emotional kind of feeling of that he's actually there, the presence. The third is looking at all the different attributes. Like in the case of Guru Rinpoche, in his right hand he holds the Vajra, which means that he has all perception and all paranoia and all negativity under control. But generally, you see, you do these three things important in tantric visualizations. But in the Dzogchen approach, especially in the Mahayoga approach or Anu Yoga approach, what is most important is not so much seeing clearly first, but having the feeling of presence. Even if you don't see with your mind eyes, just thinking it's there, feeling it's there, feeling the presence is the first step of, igniting the visualization, the kirim, the generating. And actually this, what is the purpose of this? This purpose is to actually make bigger your enlightened seat. When you visualize that, this is you're generating. Just as if you have really, if you have negative thoughts and really, crooked thoughts, negative thoughts and depressions, all kinds of things, you can also generate cancer, for example. Cancer or other illnesses in your body. In the same manner, if you also generate in a good way, like this also, you can bring about the healing and the wholeness, which is the opposite. Clear? As I mentioned yesterday, that the power of visualization is found to be extremely beneficial in terms of healing. So, I think I've said that, no?
So now the stages of visualization. In Tantra, you generate from the state of compassion. You get in touch with your fundamental essence, and then your pure mind, wisdom mind, or Rigpa, appears. From the open space in your heart, or your very essence, which is the Buddha, appears the syllable, the letter.
Okay, like this. I think there are three important points according to the Dzogchen approach, according to Mahayoga tradition. There are three what is called samadhis, three meditations that must be, that are ingredients. Those are, necessary for a visualization to be complete or perfect. First is called the samadhi of as-it-isness, in which what you do is you dissolve all concepts and all thoughts into the inherent purity of emptiness, into shunyata, where you let go of the grasping and the fixation. You realize the openness of the nature of your mind, which is also described as the Dhammakaya, which is also a preparation for the pardo of moment of death. It's actually a preparation for that. You see, each of the stages of visualization is to free us from birth and free us from death. Birth and death. You understand? Also, it frees a particular form of birth. That's the first step. And in terms of death, the moment of death, this particular practice is a preparation for that. Then in the second stage is from out of that state of emptiness surges a tremendous compassion. It's like when the clouds go away, there rises the sun, like that. The sun, the warmth, compassion, which comes from your fundamental bodhicitta, goodness, shines forth, which is radiated out, compassion for all beings, which is called kundu chabitingenzi, the all-pervasive samadhi, which is actually related with Sambhogakaya aspect of the Buddha body, and in the Pardo, it's related with Pardo Dhammata. Then, from out of the seed, out of this, the union of shunyata, the emptiness, and the compassion, the bodhicitta, from the union is one's rikpa, one's inherent pure awareness, wisdom mind, arises, emerges. You see, because it's not enough to just have compassion, to have compassion for beings, but you must actually actively do something about it. So it's like actively you want to do something. What you do is you get hold of your rikpa, your inherent nature of your mind, which is the non-dual state of, which is the union of emptiness and compassion, and you give that birth. You give it birth, like you emanate, you incarnate a being that is able to help. You understand? It's like the whole process of incarnation. It's interesting also in Christianity it said that the God, the Father, would not have been able to incarnate in the Son, the Christ, had it not been through the medium of Holy Ghost. Holy Ghost is like a Sambhogakaya. Compassion like a Holy Ghost. The dissolving into the state of emptiness is like the God. And then emanating is like the Son. The Trinity principle is there. If you were to relate beyond theology and relate to the basic principle of Trinity, But if you relate with theology, then there's Buddhism and Christianity is a problem between them, because in Christianity the deity is seen as in a kind of theistic way, as an external deity, whereas Buddhism is seen as an internal truth rather than external help, as mentioned already before. But if you can really relate to the principle, going beyond that kind of theistic idea, then actually there is no longer any conflict between the idea of Trinity and also the Three Kaya principle. Anyway, so then one's rikpa, one's wisdom mind, arises, out of the state of emptiness and moved and inspired by compassion. It's like, you see fish leaping out from the water. The waves bring the fish, kind of thing. And then one's own rikpa, one's own assumes in the initial visualization, it takes the form of the syllable. Syllable is the seed syllable, which is like in the form of mantra, which is like the heart. Like in different deities have different seed syllable. Like in the case of Padmasambhava, is Hong. In the case of like Amitabha, it's Shri. Syllable. In the case of Manjusri, it's Di. In the case of Tara, it's Tam. And they have also different colors according to the deity. Tara is always green. Or if it's white, Tara is white. In the case of Guru Rinpoche, it's like the blue Hung or a red Hung, or depending. See Hung, one's own rikpa as Hung. Then, from there, rays of light go to all the celestial realms, especially to the heaven of Guru Rinpoche, bringing back its blessing. And then it also goes to the whole, what is done is making offering to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, bringing back the blessing. This blessing, as it returns into the Hong, it kind of brings about the transformation, or rather the Hong suddenly becomes the Padmasambhava. Or if it, in the case of Avalokiteshvara, it becomes Avalokiteshvara. Instantaneously, as soon as you think it.
So this is following the example of Padmasambhava. As the light returns into the Hong, suddenly you are transformed into the full being of Padmasambhava. Padmasambhava does not have an ordinary human body with flesh or bones, or like a statue.
It is said it's not like a statue which is kind of solid, or nor like painting flat. It's like you can see, but it's empty. It's like a reflection in the mirror. It's like a rainbow. See? But the most important is being the embodiment of the ninth principle, manifesting on this occasion in the person of Padmasambhava.
Then you visualize at your forehead, throat and heart.
See, what is very important is that, you see, in Tantra, that the wisdom is actually brought to life, in kind of humanized. The humanization of the wisdom, actually giving it a face. It's no longer an abstract truth, which you could get or not get, but you actually give it a wisdom form and communicate and work with it directly. That's the whole principle of Tantra, is a means of using visualization as a way of communicating with the wisdom nature. And then after you become like a Padmasambhava, for example, you become fully Padmasambhava, then you visualize at the forehead of Padmasambhava is a white letter, Om, crystal, which represents the wisdom mind body of all the Buddhas, or the Vajra body. And the throat is Ah, ruby-like, representing the Vajra speech of all the Buddhas. And then the heart is blue hung, lapis lazuli-like, representing the wisdom mind of all the Buddhas, and especially Padmasambhava. And from this rays of light go white, red, blue, go up to all the celestial realms, especially into the heaven of Padmasambhava, into the Nayapachri, and into the Uddiyana, and bringing back the wisdom aspect of Padmasambhava. You see, what in Tantra, you visualize yourself as a deity, is called Samaya Sattva, is the deity of the Samaya, which actually you can only create yourself as a deity after you've received the initiation, whether you've been empowered by the master, as the seed has been sown. But then you see, in this visualization there are two stages, that you yourself, generating yourself as the deity, the Samaya Sattva, is not sufficient. But you invite the wisdom aspect of all the Buddhas and Padmasambhava come back to you and dissolve into you. You understand? As it dissolves into, merge into you, then the wisdom aspect, which is called Jnana Sattva, and yourself, the Samaya Sattva, becomes one, and then you become complete. You become. And this, sometimes you see, you can visualize like Padmasambhava, some images of Padmasambhava as big as a mountain, as big as, some as small as a snowflake come down. There are also blessing of speech in the form of mantras, mantric syllables with its own self-sound, like raindrops. And his wisdom mind aspect blessings in the form of Vajra, in the form of Kapala, and different symbols they come out, as they come down and as they dissolve into you, you're completely, imbued with the blessing of Padmasambhava, and you you become fully, potent, or fully empowered, or fully matured into the Padmasambhava by the wisdom blessing. The wisdom aspect and the Samaya Sattva merge into one. And this is where, at this point, the visualization is complete.
Then the main thing is the mantra.
That's right. That's the main point, is the mantra practice.
In the case of Guru Rinpoche, in his heart is a syllable hum.
Like you as Padmasambhava, in your heart is a syllable hum on a lotus seat, or sun and moon seat, Then around it,
around which the mantra is encircled.
Om Ahom Bandham Krupema Siddhihum, the mantra.
From this, rays of light stream out, purifying the world,
purifying the world and
the beings.
And the beings. And until this is actualized, I shall not let go of practice, it says. Yes, you stay in that state, you send out rays of light, purifying all beings and environment. This is extremely good for environmental practice. I just did a conference in Hagen on what is called Visioning the Future and Healing the Earth, during which time I was emphasizing, they were asking me whether there were any meditative practices in healing the earth. Is this kind of practices, which is like environmental purifying aspect, where you give back to the earth the energy, you see, by the power of meditation. By the way, mind is extremely powerful. I think sometimes we don't, we don't quite understand. We only know the power of material things, we do not quite comprehend the power of mind. But you'll be amazed, you'll realize more and more. If you work with meditation and mind more, you begin to realize the incredible power there is in the mind, which is more